Recently, somebody has made a seemingly innocent comment on a video of Funky Kong's voice clips in Mario Kart Wii. And what this is that it goes into detail of how the author formed a story around all of the noises that Funky Kong makes, where it sounds like he says, "The Shock!" and that this is Funky Kong's superhero alter ego form who's really good at racing. They then go on to explain the whole entire story they made up around this. Like how if you combo the voice clips right, it sounds like, "Oh, I'm not the Shock!" Which is like Clark Kent saying he's not Superman, and then relationships like Toadette's his Lois Lane, Baby Luigi's the successor, and Donkey Kong gets hit by shells for whatever reason, and that he's supposed to have an arch villain that's named Reality, but they never got to who that could be. And this has been pretty popular because it's been featured in an iceberg chart for the game. But what if I told you everything in this comment is actually correct? I don't know if the commenter has any inside info at all, but I looked into this and was able to discover through interviews that I must keep anonymous. For when I reached out to these people, they were strikingly upset trying to explain this, and I had to get as little info as I could out of them. In fact, the only reason why I know any of this is because amongst everybody's silence, one of them quietly slipped me a cursed hard drive containing the script for all this, which is that the Shock, his story, was meant to be the whole entire plot amongst Mario Kart. Yes. Have you noticed just why and how Funky Kong is so good in Mario Kart Wii and just carries such an appealing, iconic aura? Because he was meant to be the main character. In fact, the story would have just revolved around him. There would have been this whole entire big story mode, and his alter ego, the Shock, and the journey behind that. And it was going to get really, really intense. Now let me explain it to you. It would open, as you expect, Funky Kong racing around, winning races as he does, and being his funky monkey self. But then, Mario, who's normally supposed to be the main character, would notice all of the attention Funky Kong is getting and how it seems to be his turn this time. Mario would become super enraged by this and began attacking Funky Kong in a flurry of swears, going like, "Mama fucker," and stomping on Funky Kong while calling him names, and Funky is just taking out like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." And then this was when the big reveal would come up where he's the Shock, and Funky Kong would shout this out, triggering his transformation into the Shock, and then proceed to beat on Mario. The story would then continue from here, where he develops a relationship with Toadette, and they get really close, and Toadette eventually starts to learn his secrets, but it's okay and all, and Baby Luigi sees, but not knowing to their knowledge, and starts to look up to him and want to be the Shock. And most of the story was just mainly this stuff and kind of chill and lighthearted, and Donkey Kong, who was called the Donking, shot by all of the colors of the shells for whatever reason, probably because rivalry or something like that, to harass his best friend as the Shock. But then, after a while, it's by this part where the story would begin to take a much more dark turn as we introduce who Reality is. Some people, based on the comments, theorize that this could be Waluigi, and they are correct. this is how he would be introduced. Waluigi being jealous from always being left out, and the big button of all jokes would see that Funky Kong of all characters are the star of their own game. And Waluigi would get the idea to form his own ego too and be the villain to the shock reality, to give him a dose of reality maybe, that he's not the star of the Mario series. And the way the introduction would be handled is that Funky Kong would be hanging around, but then off screen we would hear a loud, desperate "Whoa!" from Wario. It would then show Wario crawling on all fours and pulling a trolley with his mouth, with Waluigi riding on it and whipping Wario with it, showing that he's somehow overcome and overpowered Wario to this degree. And then he would laugh like, and then he would transform into reality. A very powerful being that would send the entirety of the area ablaze. Funky Kong transforms into the Shock. However, a part of the plot was that the Shock in its power might have some sort of negative aura, or let's say negative downside to it, that had a very dark and evil part to it. Funky Kong must not lose control and become corrupted by it, much like tapping into the Satsuo no Hustle. But reality proved to be so powerful that Funky Kong has to go all in and start screaming while attacking and fighting back. And Toadette's all like, "No! You have to not lose control!" And after grieving bad over, it seems like Funky has totally lost his mind against reality and battering and bruising and bleeding him out. He eventually would win. And it seems like by some miracle, Funky Kong would snap off the shock and return to himself completely winded and exhausted. Toadette decided that they should go up on the hill into a building with each other to relax and wind down after all of that. They sit down together and bond. However, it seems like that the shock was not quite done for the night, as Funky Kong seemed to be a bit off, and he would go like, "No!" and he would start clutching his head while sitting down, and Toadette's like, "Are you okay?" and reach out to him, but then Funky Kong screamed and tell her to get back, and bam, explosion ignites as Funky Kong unwillingly becomes the Shock. And he looks at Toadette, who's on the ground, and it seems like he's about to attack him, but there's just that slight bit of hope and sanity left in Funky's control to not do that, and instead fly off. The Shock screamed, shattering the glass in the building. The glass penetrates Toadette, who screams, and then she's like, "No!" as the Shock jumps up and flies through the roof and zooms away from the area way too fast for Toadette to stop or do anything against the Shock. As some of you might know, planned characters in Mario Kart Wii were Petey Piranha, Paratroopa, Hammer Bro, and Meowfit C, but they didn't see the light of the day. That's because the Shock took out some of his hyperactivity on them. You see, he first verbally made fun of and bullied Petey, who got really sad and walked away, which was why he didn't make it to Wii. He then started beating on Paratroopa, who was injured, but others saw this and yelled at the Shock to stop before he could do any more harm, which is why he had to temporarily retire. Hammer Bro wasn't as lucky, as he was the one who shouted at the Shock to quit it. The Shock zoomed over and started attacking Hammer Bro, breaking his legs in the process and slamming him down. Hammer Bro became paralyzed from the waist down and was hospitalized not to appear in Mario Kart for a very long time. Me Outfit C was the most unfortunate. Being a witness, the Shock attacked them too, but killed them by punching his fists through their torso. The Shock then started zooming and racing so fast that they crossed into another dimension and disappeared forever, which is why Funky Kong hasn't appeared in another Mario Kart since, because he just got too powerful. The developers were very upset by this story, thinking it was too extreme. Mario Kart Wii did want a kind of extreme sports feel to it. However, most of this had to be cut in the final of the game, being this weird remnant that they mentioned, and had in with the bikes, which Funky Kong performs the best with. And to this day, there is no trace of the Shock, aside from those who remember it. However, they say that he is still lurking and watching the games and the players beyond this dimension. You must not utter him or speak ill of him in any way, or else the Shock will attack you from there, which is what's the most case of the Mario Kart bullshit that you still see today.